Hey everyone, welcome to the last part of the Hexagony walkthrough series. Uh, we're going to jump right into these password paths. This was the example, and the rules of password path are very straightforward. You draw a path from the starting cell to the ending cell, and along that path you go to cells that are adjacent either orthogonally or diagonally. The path cannot cross itself, so this would be wrong. Must repeatedly spell the password, and you have to use all the cells. So the very first starting point you would do, or you can do on this, is there's two main approaches. You can either go mostly in order, or try to, and go, okay, well, this V can go to an E, we need to then get to an X. If we do this, we're cutting off this V. But that's not exactly a very efficient approach. The more practical approach is to look at letters that are connected. In this case, the E's are not going to be very likely as they connect to every other letter, but the X's are going to be useful as each X will have to connect to two E's. So this X only has two options, leaving two, and we then get all of these EXE connections. So now each V will have to go into one of these and then out. Additionally, each D has to connect to a V except for the last one, and each V to a D, again, except for the last one. So we can pair them off, this V to this D. So this is then directed down this way. This D to this V, this way. This D to this V. And yeah, so again, we get a bunch of these intermediary segments, and that's going to be useful for the other major trick, and this is something that is true of any directed path puzzle. Along the border, if the start and end points are on the border, then all segments along that border must flow from the start to the end. Therefore, we normally would not be able to say, well, which of these E's is first, but because of this directed nature, we know this one must go to a V, and this one to a D. And in fact, this E didn't have a D available to begin with. But we should be able to, in pretty short order, then finish up most of the remaining connections and solve the example password path. So the example is mostly made not to be difficult, but instead to show that the password could contain a duplicate letter for this puzzle, this first one, which has the password puzzle. So again, we can start by pairing off the Z's as they are adjacent. We can't quite pair off this group, but each of those only have one option. This P goes to one U. We then don't know where that's going to go. Well, this L only has two options now. P, U. Well, let's see. This P is like EP, 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 EP. Linking up the E's to the L's. We're going to have to go out this way. Have to connect backwards. This L will go here, which is going to force the rest of this. This will have to get grabbed by something. So this P goes to this U, this L here. And this is the last really critical thing to do in a password path puzzle that will sometimes come up. This kind of Z, U, U, Z thing, we need to avoid making a loop. And if this U goes to this Z, then we'll make a loop. So it doesn't, and this is the solution to the easy password path puzzle. This was worth 5 points on Hexagony. This was the only 5-point puzzle in the entire contest. And these were placed last, just so that this hexagonal puzzle that says hexagon, would be last. That's it. That's the entire reason. So this one was worth 15 points, rounding out the contest. And the longer password it makes some very interesting results. And I think this type works better on a hexagonal grid than a square grid. The no crossing rule doesn't apply, but a lot of the rest does. So let's get started. We can't tell which direction that's going to go. So I'm basically just going to look around the grid, not super methodically, for any letters that have any forced links. So, for example, this is all forced as there's no other way for this to get to a hex. We have this AG diamond, so this is going to be resolved later on for sure. This G can only go this way to get gone, and then continue on hexa. That's not going to prematurely make a loop. That's going to go to the end. We don't know which N is going to be used yet. We can start with another hexa. Let's see. Oh, sorry, that doesn't. We don't know the G yet, but in fact, we do know to avoid prematurely making a loop. And this is going to be our ending segment. We don't know which X is used, so let's keep going. We don't know if this is the end or not yet. We can then continue along this kind of path. We don't want to make a loop early, so now we know this bottom section. We need to go to E, to H. We then are just going to continue. Goes to the N. We don't know which way that goes. Up to A. Let's see, this X must be taken immediately. We then kind of get both of these moves. Continue going hexagon. Let's see, that X is forced. That goes to the G. That N goes to that H. That N goes to that H. That goes here. Therefore, we're going to need to, this X will force into this Xa. Therefore, to have this H go to an N, it goes here. No premature loop closing. No premature loop closing. Again, we don't want to make a loop. We don't want to... Essentially, we know that this is going to be the gone, right? But again, we don't want to prematurely follow this path all the way to the end. So it splits off again. We then continue on hexa, gone. This O is now forced to go this way in particular. If we go to this A from here, then we're prematurely making a loop, so we do not. And now this would create a loop, and so it does not. And that is the solution to the hexagonal password path from Hexagony and the conclusion of the Hexagony solution series. I wanted to do this as soon as the test was finished. I kind of wanted to have these available ready to go immediately, but since I was spending a lot of time scoring the contest while it was still running, and then compiling those results, I wasn't quite able to get these recorded until a couple days after. A benefit of having these recorded a couple days after is I can say with certainty that this was, the contest of Hexagony was a huge success, far beyond my wildest expectations. I wrote a whole post-mortem post, but in that, I was expecting at most maybe 50 participants. We got 95 competitive registrants, another 34, I think it was, just casual solvers. Of the 95 competitive, there were 90 people who submitted a solution to at least one puzzle. I'm blown away by the reach that this got. The gimmick that half of the puzzles were on hexagonal grids, very few people seemed to actually catch that was coming from the way the rules were written. Very, very few people, which makes that surprise twist a full success. I'm really glad that it was well received as well. I was while the contest was going on, I was paranoid that people were just gonna be like, yeah, that twist was stupid, but everybody who had anything to say about it was like, that was really cool. Yeah. So, in conclusion, thanks for checking out Hexagony. Thanks for checking out these solutions. Major shout outs to Eric Fox for helping out with the construction. This was very much a collaborative effort between us for making these contest puzzles. And another big thanks to the test team of Calica, Tossed Crunch, A Sickly Silver Moon, and Shaiheya, or however you're supposed to say that. Thank you all for watching, And until the next time I do solution walkthroughs on puzzles like this, let me know if you think I should do this for a future contest round not written by me. Yeah, thank you, and until next time.